Okay, so let me ask I'm going to do some build up to this question, which is, ultimately it's about self-censorship. There's a notion that I've read about and spoken with some writers about called semantic contagion, and it expresses this idea that some ideas shouldn't be shared because the sharing of the idea perpetuates behavior, and there's a neurosis where some people, once they learn about being able to have a healthy limb amputated, go and have it done. And it's just like, maybe we shouldn't talk a lot about that. And so when you get to your work, are there things that you decide, you know what, it's not going to go into the book because, I don't want to spread any semantic contagion.
Keep those diseased memes under lock.
Yeah, right. And so I know that some writers are like, hell no, it's, whatever serves the story. And I've had a lot of writers say, even Ralphus, he's like, I'm not going to talk about how to effectively poison, a water supply because I don't want someone to go and do it.
Yeah. I haven't had too much concern about that. I did have one episode in my second book where I was talking about, I think it was potassium, or maybe it was sulfur, but maybe it's potassium, has a violent reaction with water. And I did think about that, and it's like, should I say this, should I not? I don't want some kid getting a lump of this and throwing it in a bathtub, right? I definitely would be a little more concerned if I were writing about the real world, if I were, talking about how to disable a power supply or something. But, because it is a fantasy world and most of the stuff doesn't actually exist, the poisons and stuff like that, I haven't worried about it too much. I actually worry more about, moral ideas, the sort of things that you're backing, because I've certainly read books where, you have a character behaving in what might be considered a very evil way, but it's presented very convincingly from that character's point of view. I mean, the classic example of this, of course, is Clockwork Orange.
Yeah.
And, the question is, well, do you want susceptible people who might not be able to see past the top layer of the story to what's being said underneath? Do you want them to have access to that? And the problem is you get into government censorship then at that point, which I don't think is a good idea.
Yeah.
And as far as censoring myself, the only things I've really censored are sex and violence. Sex, I haven't really needed to censor because there really isn't much in the series because the characters are so young. There are two characters who spend the night together in Eldest, and it's just a graceful fade to black at that point.
Yeah.
The violence, I write my first drafts and I put every gory detail into them. When I go through with a read-through, I'll look at it and I'll say, okay, is that extraneous, or is it distracting, or is it just too much? And sometimes I dial it back, because I do have younger readers, and try to keep that in mind. But the books also have gotten slightly more intense with each one, especially this last one.
Yeah. All right, so a lighter question for you. I find that most writers have some kind of quirk. Some have to sit in the same place. One guy I know can forecast the words in his novels, like scary close. What's your quirk? Or are you like the complete anomaly and you're absolutely normal?
Hardly. Let me see, quirks. I've probably written more on sofas than on any other writing, just not on the sofa, but sitting on a sofa.
Yeah, I get it, yeah.
I like writing by hand. I've written by hand quite a bit, but I found it changes my prose style. I wrote a third of Brisingr by hand with an ink dip pen on parchment paper.
Interesting.
That was fun. I listen to movie soundtracks usually when I'm writing.
Oh, that was going to be one of my questions.
Yeah, no dialogue. I can't handle hearing words. I mean,
Yeah.
I can handle singing, but no words I cannot hear.
Okay.
I love music. I absolutely hate writing with someone else talking around me. Ambient noise to a certain degree, loud air conditioner, no. Too much noise and I just can't concentrate.
Yeah.
So that's really tough. Tea. I have to have tea. Good tea. Lapsang souchong in the morning, maybe. Cinnamon tea in the afternoon. I mean, I can get by without it, but it really helps the writing process.
Creature comforts. You gotta have them.
That's right.
Who do you rush out to buy in terms of writing, like our books?
Well, let's see. I bought all of Ian M. Banks' science fiction books after reading just one. So, I like his. I like Alexander McCall Smith, the Ladies Detective Agency series.
Yeah.
I like The Name of the Wind. I've yet to read Wise Man's Fear, but I bought that as soon as it came out. if Stephen King keeps writing Dark Tower novels, I'll keep buying them.
Yeah, me too.
Let me see what else. Dan Simmons is one. Neil Stephenson.
Yep.
Neil Stephenson. If Mervyn Peake or E.R. Edison were still writing, I'd grab those before they were written.
Yeah, for sure.
But the thing is, I don't feel too much urgency for most writers. It's like, the book's out, it's going to be there, I'll read it.
Yeah.
I've got to finish mine, though.
Yeah, you start to balance priorities.
Yeah.
What's the simplest thing that aspiring writers overlook that might most impact their future success? I mean, there could be a lot of things, but what comes to mind?
I think there are two things tied in my mind. One is the importance of consistency, of writing, whether or not you feel inspired, but of writing every day. You are not a writer unless you are a writer. If you are in the hospital, you better be writing.
Yeah.
Write on your birthday, write on holidays. You can take Christmas off, but every other day you need to be writing.
Okay, we have the law now. Christmas off.
That's right. Because the thing is that it's really easy to procrastinate. And I say this as someone who loves to procrastinate. So I don't let myself do it. It's a habit. I get up, I write. No matter how I feel about it, I write. And I might throw the day's writing out, but I still wrote something. And you still learn something from it. And then the other one is tied with the importance of editing. When I was younger, I thought, the books on the shelves in the library and the bookstores, that's just how the writers wrote them, right? They sat down and they wrote that book, first draft, right? Well, it doesn't quite work like that, does it?
That's right.
As I'm sure you know.
I know, yes.
There's a favorite story of mine, and I'm sure it's apocryphal, but a friend goes over to James Joyce's house, and he finds Joyce decked out on the couch, and Joyce is, he looks miserable. And the friend goes, James, what's wrong? And Joyce groans, and he says, I had a horrible writing day. I only wrote 6 words the whole day. And the friend goes, oh, James, that's good for you. And James goes, I know, but I don't know what order they go in. So, the thing is editing. Yeah, you learn. I stand by the statement. I say, I guarantee you will learn more from editing than you ever will from writing. Because thing is, you could write 10 books and not get any better. It's only by consciously analyzing what you're doing as you're writing, and then during the editing, that you will improve. And the problem is that you'll go through a stage, and I've been there myself, where you start out writing, just stream of consciousness almost. You're not editing, you're not censoring yourself. It's like, I'm telling a story, yeah. Then you start realizing it's horrible. And you go through a long period of questioning every single thing you're writing. Yeah. Every word, every comma, every period. And over time, that starts to abate. The problem is then you're almost paralyzed for a while. And it's just practice. Over time, I always used to hear people talk about a writer's voice. And I was like, okay, what is that? I don't feel that. I'm getting my books published. I don't feel my writer's voice. What is this? And to me, a writer's voice is the same thing as playing an instrument. It's where you've played your instrument so much that things start getting easier. They get a little more accustomed, a little more well-worn. It's like you've solved the same problem so many times that you don't struggle with them quite the same way. And you have a way of saying things. It's not anyone else's way, it's your way. And you know that. And you're not so influenced by everyone else's voice. You don't go down and read a book and then immediately start copying it when you write, because you know that's not how you write. And your voice can change from book to book, but no, the only way to get your voice is to write and to solve and to go through the editing over and over again.
Yeah, I agree with that. We talked about music. I have to ask more music questions.
Go, shoot. I love music.
So you do listen, at least sometimes, to some music when you write. When you're not writing, and you can have actual lyrics, who are some of the people you put in your CD or on your iPod?
Well, you keep in mind, I grew up in a rural Montana homeschool, so I'm not really part of modern society like that, but let me see. Oh, my sister got me hooked on Lady Gaga, for which I curse her forever.
Okay.
But I'll listen to her every now and then. I like the Stones, good classic rock and roll there.
Sure.
I like joke songs, I'll listen to The Laughing Gnome by David Bowie, or things like that. Fish Heads.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. Dr. Demento.
Dr. Demento, that's right. There's a great show on NPR in Montana. It's called The Saturday Show on Sunday. And just plays the weirdest off-the-wall stuff every day, every show. So I listen to a lot of that when drawing. But mainly, if I'm not writing and I'm listening to something, I will be listening to college courses on tape.
Oh, really?
Since I'm not in school and I never went to college, I keep trying to educate myself when I can, and a lot of those courses end up playing into my writing. You know, I'll learn something from history or science, and it's like, didn't know that, that's interesting, that's going in the story.
I like that. I'm going to have to do that. I went to college, really, but I did the English degree, and so there's a lot of cool science stuff.
My dad is scary. He's listened to about 200 complete courses at this point, and he knew a lot to begin with, but now it's like, you know, he's a walking encyclopedia.
He's probably a resource to you, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Best concert you've ever been to?
I've never been to a concert. I've been to the Metropolitan.
That counts.
Orchestra / opera in New York City. So let's see. I think it'd be a tie. I saw Tristan und Isolde by Wagner a few years ago in New York City, and I came away from it firmly believing what Mark Twain said, which is that Wagner is better than he sounds. I also saw it was a performance of Beethoven's third or fourth, and it was just gorgeous.
Yeah.
I mean, Beethoven is my favorite composer. I think classical composer. It just doesn't get any better than Beethoven.
Okay.
And Brahms. I mean,
you have definitely elevated the music discussion.
Mind you, I'll also listen to Pink Martini too. So.
Well, and Dr. Demento.
And Dr. Demento.
So that's good. Last question. What can we expect in the future? Like, I know you've got a lot of touring and support for this work, and I've heard you speak, so I know you have a lot of ideas. But do you have anything that feels certain, like when you get back to your writing desk, what's coming next?
I have plotted out 20 to 30 completely new novels from scratch, start to finish. And those have all been ideas I've gotten in the last 13 years or so, and have been unable to write because I was finishing the Inheritance Cycle. Once I'm done with the tour, I'm going to take a nice long rest, and then I have a short story I'm working on at the moment, just here and there on the tour, so I'll finish the short story, and then I'm going to go write a science fiction book. Pretty sure of that. I mean, I might change my mind, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to write this sci-fi book next.
Is that a standalone, or is it part of?
It's yes and no. It's a standalone, but it ties into some other books, which I am not prepared to discuss at the moment, but for some fun stuff. Then I've got a lot more sci-fi, a lot more fantasy, mystery, thriller, horror, romance, historical fiction. I mean, I would like to bounce around a lot of different genres, and I'm in the very fortunate position of having the freedom to do that.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. I mean, I've been working on one genre, one story since I was 15.
Yeah.
And, you know...
It's something new.
Yeah, I just turned 28. It's time to try some new stuff.
That's right.
That said, I do intend to return to Eragon's world at some point and tell another story. And I actually... One of the things that bugged me a lot as a reader when I was growing up was that you have a fantasy series. Maybe it's one book, maybe it's a couple of books, and there's a big villain. Villain gets defeated. Series is over. Story's over. And then you can tell that the author suddenly went, oh man, those books were really selling. I gotta come up with another one. And they write another one in the world or in the series, and all of a sudden another villain gets pulled out of the hat, just as big and scary as the last one. And you go, well, wait a minute, where was this guy when the events of the last books were taking place?
Right.
So what I've done is, in my second and my third book, in my third and fourth books, I laid the groundwork for several other stories that I'm going to play in this world. So it's just sort of threaded in here and there, but it's enough that when I return to the world and pick it up, because I've spent so long building this world and the characters, I don't want to completely abandon it. Readers will be able to go back and say, oh, yes, this. And it's kind of fun, because I've done that. I mean, I like puzzles, and I've done that throughout the whole series. And readers, now that the last book is done, I've even seen comments from them. You know, they've gone back to the first book, and they're going, oh, man, he already had this worked out. It's already referenced in the first book, and I didn't, you know, we couldn't see that. And that's also one reason I'm very glad the story is finally done and finished out there. My
editor calls that picking up a stitch.
Mm-hmm.
And you've done that pretty well.
Yeah.
So, well, great. I really appreciate your time, Christopher. I know you're busy. And I think a lot of folks are going to have gleaned a lot of good information. So appreciate you spending some time with us.
My pleasure.
Thank you, sir.
Same here.